Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Good evening. Hey,
How's it
hey. How are
going?
you? Thank you. Thank you for coming, Noah.
Thank you for having me.
So cool.
Can we
Um,
see? Is there a way I can see the people that joined, or is it just?
no, just we're just we just conversate. They're just watching us. We are on the spot. We can
Okay.
only we can only, especially that we're streaming to Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, everywhere. Uh, Let me start by saying hello to everyone who's watching on listen, and listening to us. Maybe if I can start by asking if you can actually hear us well, and maybe you can confirm by saying what city, country, continent you are from. Oh, I can see some first. Hi,
Oh,
hello.
Neil. Yeah, Neil's is a good friend. Hi.
Cool. Yep. So, guys, you can just write that down. Let me just start by saying that today we are just covering the subject which I'm super excited with, passion-driven audio products, and our guest is Noam Levinger. Sorry, I'm just a bit stressed at the beginning. Levinberg, from Safari Audio, founder and CEO of Safari Pedals, company that makes cool plugins from Tel Aviv.
Yes. Thank you for the intro, and thank you for having me. And I've been checking out some of the earlier webinars, and I think you're doing an amazing job with bringing really talented people from the audio industry. And I mean, I'm humbled. I don't think I
Oh, come on.
deserve this platform, but you invited me, so I couldn't say no.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I know. I mean, if I heard from when I heard from you that this is such a one of the greatest, the most important, exciting subject, talking about the passion-driven product development. I was so happy because, to me, it is the same. A lot of people talk about, like entrepreneurship, financial aspects, venture capital and stuff, and we can actually forget why we are actually here, why we are doing, the things we do, and sometimes I maybe think that even talking about passion driven product management, or like building products based on passion, it may sound like some kind of immature, oh, this is guy who's just not driven by the professional, business practices, processes, blah blah blah, but by passion. Yeah, so I think it's a great subject we can unpack and actually see what's there. But before actually we start, and because before I let you introduce and tell the story, because it's such a great story, um, I wanted to just to tell everyone that, as usual, this webinar will be held in a form that we actually have a conversation, and you obviously can post questions. We'll see them from whatever channel you are posting them from, and we'll actually try to keep the like a quarter, at least quarter at the end, so we can, not we actually, Noam can try to answer them. We may be actually stopping at this from time to time to have a look at them, so it's not like we are just talking. Although, talking to I know from experience that talking to him is actually such a cool thing, so we can probably spend here, 2 or 3 hours. Yeah, but for the sake of the time, Noam is actually a bit later, an hour
Yeah.
later, and than me. So we'll try to keep a bit of discipline here. No, so with this said, if I can tell you, ask you if you can just tell a little bit, what you do. Probably a lot of people know you already, and the company, but maybe a bit, like your story.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so first, just to touch on what you said earlier, and obviously this is like the topic of the webinar, and we're going to talk about it more later. But I just want to say that I think that the passion, or the kind of the concept of passion-driven products, I feel like is something that always is overlooked. Not only with like software products or products in general, but in general with creating stuff. And I think this is something that I felt with my experience in the studio, and um, I kind of always felt that it's misunderstood, this kind of idea of going with your passion. And I'll give you a little bit of background about myself. Um, so I've been an audio engineer and audio nerd, and mixer and mastering engineer for a good 20 something years now. And talk about passion. I mean, that the my journey started from, like, I tried to play all the different instruments. I was kind of bad with everything, but I really enjoyed hanging around talented musicians. And I realized really early in my beginning of the, like, my my beginning, not only as a in my career but as a person. I realized that I'm drawn into music in a way that nothing else ever, until this day, ever meant the same thing for me. And it was something very deep that I was looking to be a part of. Uh, and But I didn't play really well. So I was like in a few bands, but really quickly I realized that I need to pursue something else. And I was just hanging around in recording, not recording, but rehearsal studios
Hmm.
with friends and helping out with gigs and stuff. And it kind of naturally came into me recording all the gigs and everything. Um, and I just fell in love with, like, the whole process of using a microphone and connecting it to something, whatever it is, if it's an analog tape machine or a computer or whatever. But like hearing what you recorded and then, like, doing all these layers and stuff. And some of my best memories of life, to be honest, are those moments where I was like figuring out, like, just a funny quick story of, like, something that came to my mind right now is, like, I remember sitting in the studio with this metal band, and the guitar player asked me to duplicate the track, and he wanted to play the same track again, as a layer. And it was the first time that I, like, thought about it. Like, I never thought about this concept. And then he said, "Yeah, just put the first guitar on the left, and this one is going to be on the right." And he started playing, and I remember the feeling of, like, oh, this is how a record sounds, like, this is how a metal record sounds. So I think the passion, for me, was really from the beginning, and it never ended. And I think this is, like, a really good point, because I believe that, from my experience at least, that, like, the things that you're most passionate about, they're gonna stay the same forever. Like, I don't think, like, for example, I also like surfing, and it's the same type of experience where, like, anytime I go to the ocean and go into the water and surf, it's there. It's the same thing as I experienced it when I was like 9 years old. So what I'm trying to say is, like, the passion never really goes away. I think what goes away is, like, people kind of prioritize other things on top of it and, like, try and do other things, etc. But going back to my story, I'm sorry, this really long. Did mixing for a good, like, 20 years, and loved it. But it got to a point where I felt like, um, a lot of things were kind of missing in my life, and I was looking for more ways I can kind of, sort of, like, build things that are not songs. And I got this opportunity from a company called Artlist, that are an amazing company. They do royalty-free music for video. And I started with them as a head of audio and built the audio department there. And the company grew extremely fast, and up to a point where, when I left, it was, I think, 500 employees or something. And that was a different type of passion, but it was also passion. Like, I found that I kind of found what I was looking for. I found that I was also drawn into not only music creation, but also managing a team, managing a budget, doing all the more business oriented things. Um, and it was fascinating to me. I kind of joke with my wife now that I was there 4 years, and those 4 years were kind of my business school, sort of.
MBA.
Yeah,
Yeah, got
because I was dealing with all these new things, and I had to kind of learn a lot to get by. Um, and Yeah, fast forward to like a year and a half ago, I decided to quit my job and start my own thing. And I feel like um, it's again, it's like it's always for me. It's like finding a new way to express your passion, because part of the passion that I have to like mixing songs, which is an amazing experience and something that I really love doing,
Mhm.
is this exploration of like textures and sounds that you're looking for. And in that exploration, um, plugins are a huge part of that, I think, as well as other equipment. And you don't see it in the screen, but like surrounded with all this analog gear that I love. Um, and I think that's kind of where Safari Pedals is like born. It was like from this idea of like, what if I can take everything that I learned from this business degree quote, and apply it to something that I'm really passionate about, and maybe create a new business. Um,
You see, I like very much. I mean, we did talk about it before, but I always felt like, I had my sort of entrepreneurial journey, before, and actually including failed startup. I mean, I always thought about, like you say, it's actually, if you're a creator, building a company is also like it's not about money. It's not about, I don't know, maybe there are people who are just driven or motivated by making a lot of money. I assume they are from some books I read, but I mean, to me, it was always about, giving birth to something amazing, right? It's like the same like creating a song or creating, I mean, making a painting, or yeah, just forming something that will actually last even if go away. It's just that's such a, yeah, it's just like a
yeah,
creative process.
yeah, I
Very creative.
agree, but I also think that like, and this is something that was an amazing experience for me, um, when when I released the first plugin, which was the Gorilla Drive. um, I felt for the first time like an artist in regards to like where I am in correlation to the art, so to speak. Because as a mixing engineer, you work on a lot of records and you sit in the room with a lot of artists that created the records, but it's not your record.
Hmm.
As much as you love the song or whatever,
Hmm.
and it was such like a closing circle to like for the first time release something that was mine. And I didn't realize it until after it was released. I didn't think about it at all. But once it came out, I really felt like how all the artists that I've been working with for so many years feel, I think, which is like you release something and you expect in your kind of dreams, in your inner self, if you're honest about it, like you expect the world to explode with like, oh my God. But what happens in reality, and this is, I think, something very common in music also, is like it, nothing, nobody
Or
talks about
just
it,
few,
or
just quite a few, right? I mean, just two, three.
uh,
Yeah.
it's like it's a really, really tiny impact in the beginning. And also, like, I remember, and this is something that I feel about music a lot as well, is like I, on one hand, really wanted everybody to hear about it, but on the other hand, I had a hard time dealing with this kind of uh, inner like experience of like, should I tell people to check it out? Maybe it's not good. Maybe it's trash. Like I don't know. And this also comes with something that I think is like the ultimate passion killer, which is people usually tell you like the worst, like people that are close to you usually tell you the worst, not the worst advice because they care for you, but like they usually kind of paint the picture in a different in a different color because
Interesting,
when I
interesting point you're saying.
yeah
Okay, you can just explore in a second, but yeah, finish. Yeah.
no, I was just about to say, like, when I was about to quit my job, the family, my family and my wife's family and like friends, really close friends, uh, really tried to like convince me to. They were like, "Don't don't give up on the job. Like that, it's so much better than starting something that you don't know if it's going to succeed." Um, but the reason I got to that job was because I was like passionate about finding new things, and I felt like this is the next passion that I want to go with. And the funny thing is, once it succeeded, in a way, like it's not a success yet, I feel, but I feel like it it exists. But like once it got to a certain level of success, you suddenly hear the opposite. Everybody's like, "Oh, that's such a good idea. Thank you. Like, that's great that you created this new like concept of plugins that are colorful and da 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 da." And
Yeah,
you
I
never.
hear
I
you. I
don't
hear
think it.
everybody. It's everywhere. I'm just like laughing sometimes with my wife, right? I'm the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just when your family. When I was just building, my first company, and I say, no, you should actually, you should get a, get a job. It's actually like a safety, etc. How can you know? And I mean, my brother is also entrepreneur. I mean, his entire life. I can say my sister is like it's just a painter. Sort of like a professional, but I'm not barely make a living. So I mean, we hear that a lot in my family. So I'm just like laughing. So funny.
Yeah,
But no,
but
yeah.
the only point I wanted to point out is like what I think about a lot is it's never opposite, right? Nobody's telling you like,
Go for it.
yeah, go quit your job, do the new thing, like go create. Uh, and after it succeeded, people like nobody after it succeeded tells you like
Sorry.
you should have stayed in the old job, you know. So it's like one of those things where you just
Yeah.
need to have a leap of faith, and
Yeah.
I think that's like a lesson that I still go with today with like building new products also, because a lot of times I still hear a lot of like negative feedback or things that like, oh, the plugin business is saturated, and there's so many products, and who needs another EQ or a compressor or a reverb or whatever. But I feel like um, it's it's kind of the same with music. Like you could say, who needs a new song? But everybody needs a new song.
No, but actually, you touch. Actually, if I can just make a small, pause or like a
Yeah.
point here, because you touch right now like a very interesting point. Actually, this is, if we can start maybe unpacking, the subject, right? Because you say, okay, so I understand that a lot of family members are make sharing this concern, because it's not actually common that actually most of the companies fail, and
Yeah.
most of the products actually fail, so, and like, as this entire webinar series about what are the things that can help people to be successful. So of course we talk about tools, strategies, market, blah blah blah. So I would like to actually understand, and I know a little bit from our previous conversations, right? When you were building products, that some that were completely driven by passion, or actually you made it. Actually, maybe I'm not going to spoil. So what is this like a sort of like a secret sauce or like an key ingredient? How do you actually, maybe just by giving some examples, right? Because obviously it would be cliche to say, so I made as best as I can, but I mean, if you could tell this a bit, yeah. So
I think okay, so I think the way I look at it is like this. It's like this. I have a vision in my mind of like the cyclists that cycle on one. How's it
monocycle
called?
or something like
Yeah,
this?
yeah,
Monocycle.
yeah. So
In a
I
circus, right? The one. Okay.
yeah, and you're on like a thread, and the reason I'm like describing this is like because um, it's this thing where it's not very explainable, like how it works, but it kind of does because you trust yourself to not fall from the bicycle. And you know, there used to be there's like a documentary about this guy that goes back and forth in Manhattan between like two
Skyscrapers.
big buildings. Um, and they interview him, and he talks about it in the documentary, and I think it's a really good analogy because like um, it shouldn't work, and if he looks down, he will for sure fall, and it's hard to explain how he managed to balance it, but in the end, it kind of works somehow. And I know this is like an annoying answer, but I think the,
No, no,
the the
I mean,
things that you balance, I think, are different from person to person. But for me, what I can say is like the balance is between creating something that I feel as a user that I'm really excited about. I think that's like number one on the list. If I don't have that, I'm not doing it. And that, I think that's like the main kind of compass for me to like create products and designs and everything, is like if I'm excited about it and I think I would want to use it in a mixing session, then it's probably worth doing. Um, and then of course there's like the other side, which is like, again, with the balancing act, like that's one side, but the other side is like I try and present it to people and ask them, like friends of mine or like people in the studio, or I have like all these friends, like even WhatsApps and stuff that I just send really early designs, like very early concepts of a product, and I'll ask them like, what do you think? Uh, and a lot of times they give me input. They say, I don't like this, I don't like that, I think this is great, I think this is bad. But whatever it is, it's like it's the other side of the spectrum, because if you lean on one of the sides, I think you fail. Like if you only do what you think is great, but you don't listen to anybody else, I don't think it can succeed. And the same on the other side, like if you only listen to what other people think, but you don't do what you feel is right, then I think you might fail as well. So it's like this balancing act. And I feel like now in the company with Safari, I'm kind of driving people crazy with this balance, because um, and I don't know. Um, I mean, I don't know if it applies uh, at some point. Like maybe if it's a big company or a bigger company, then the balance is it has other things on both sides. But um, to start with, I think that's like the way I look at it.
listen, okay, I think, I mean, just too many, things I want to. It's an hour. It's just too short. We need to have already a second, second volume two. But
Yeah, yeah, sure.
if two things. One thing that comes to my mind is that actually, uh, I would probably say that you mentioned that it has to satisfy yourself. You would use it in the mixing session, but I think, let's say, the benefit, and actually I think it's the true for many people working in the music industry, that they are just either former musicians or former mixing engineers, so they have this great privilege that they actually were on both sides, so developing products that actually they are going to use themselves, right? But I mean, I'm not. I just wonder if there is a shortcut. So to me, it sounds like in order. I did. How to say that? There is actually great saying I heard once, that in order to get like immediate success, you need to have 20 years of preparation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
heard the same thing. So, and
and actually,
I
it's true.
agree.
It's true for you, right? It's true for you because you were just working for 20 years as a mixing engineer. Now you have, let's say, quite swift success. But it was actually a lot of stuff that made you who you are, who actually made your intuition. And by the way, I mean, I hear this a lot right now with all these people who are sort of like data driven. And I mean, I argue with a lot of friends who are just, say, no, you have to make data driven decision. But I always say the best product person is the person who have the strong intuition. But intuition comes from actually being immersed fully, and I mean emotionally, intellectually, talking to people, being going to all the shows, fooling around in the studio, etc., etc. Then actually you are just better than any computer, right? You don't need so much of the like a some kind
Yeah,
of algorithm, because you actually, yeah,
I
you're
think
just like fine tune AI, right?
I think
HI.
again it's like it's this balance, because if you only do like, I try to also use data and take it to kind of my call it optimization, or learning more about this side of like uh, what other people think. I try and not have it affect what I feel, but it doesn't really work that way, because again, with the bicycle analogy, like when you start losing um, balance, then you're rotating from side to side. It affects like the both of the both of the legs, or both of your sides of your body. And going back to what you said with like the shortcut, I think I don't think there is a shortcut. I think that um like, with all honesty, the world would be better if every person would do what he's like passionate about. And I think this is also what I try and talk about and tell my employees and people that work in the company, which is like, I feel like each person needs to work in the area of expertise, not only of like what he's good at, but also the like work on a project that you think is really really exciting, and it's just
Because quality is also there, right? You actually go extra mile just to yeah, to do actually, because yeah, you want to actually have it as great as possible. But listen, can I just like one more thing to the previous one, because
yeah.
you say so many interesting things that it's a very hard actually to put, I mean, like, to make list of points and comments. You mentioned also that this is probably true for smaller companies, but I mean, I remember from one of the previous episodes, a colleague of and friend of mine, I can say, I think Francois from, I mean, former executive from Avid, where I'm actually right now. And he mentioned that, I asked him about the product strategy for the large, Avid is actually huge, one of the
Yeah.
like leading audio companies in the world. And I told him, "Hey, what is your, how to say that? What is your like a recipe for a great product strategy? Do you use some methodologies and tools?" And he says, listen, if you are just a product director or like a vice president of product, you're supposed to have certain vision, and company hires you so you can actually drive the business to the certain point. So that was great, because a lot of people, especially in large organizations, once again, they go to frameworks, objective key results, they talk about this kind of how to do things, but nobody actually says how, what to do, right? So what is actually the how to discover these main trends, etc. And again, if you are just like Francois, a guy who is like his entire life from a music school, from being a musician and marketing in music industry, etc., to a product executive, you spend your entire life in the industry, right? And you should have certain. It doesn't matter good or wrong, your vision, right? Something that you want to.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that like um in many ways our industry is different than other industries, because of this whole thing that you know I actually had experience with trying to bring somebody who's not from the music world
Mhm.
into a specific project. And I think I think it's much harder than other industries, because if, for example, I don't know, let's take an example of like you work in a company that, or you have an idea that you want to build something for I don't know, communication, or e-commerce, or any other area that is like more broad and generic, then um, you can quite easily build something that you are passionate about and you like, but it works for a really wide range of people. And in our industry, it's like a very relatively small addressable market of people that are passionate about this specific thing. And then I think compared to other markets, if this makes sense, like um, being driven by only data is not enough, because it's not about that. It's not a utility. It's not like we're not selling like
Shoe sneakers.
um
I mean,
yeah.
sneakers is also, yeah, no, sneakers is also like a, yeah, it can be like a trendy, sexy,
I
sneaker.
think that actually sneakers is exactly like kind of not exactly, but kind of similar to plugins in regards of like you could
Safari.
use you could use just one, but most probably you have a few, and you buy them based on uh, stuff that are like kind of related to the fact that you need it, but not exactly. And what I mean by it is like, if you want to play more basketball, you might find yourself wanting to buy a new pair of like basketball
Fair point, fair
shoes.
point, fair point, fair point, yeah.
And I think it's the same with music and plugins. It's like a lot of people, I feel, and myself included, I'll buy a plugin if I want to like go into a specific, like, oh, I'm working on a production that really needs um, a special spring reverb, so I might buy one, and then I'll use it on other things too. But like that was what moved me into that direction. You know what I mean?
Gotcha, 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 gotcha. I mean, got it. I want to also like a highlight, maybe just for the sake of everybody listening. Like by any mean, I'm completely with you with the idea of the balancing, right? So I'm not saying that passion, only passion. And I actually wanted to ask, also about, how to avoid the trap of being in a, sort of driven by completely by passion. But I like this topic so much because generally it should be balancing, but everybody talks about the only one, let's say how to say part of the equation, and rather than talking that this is actually two, right? So if I have somebody who talks, and actually see the other side, I mean, it's so great. But it's obvious that we should actually use like a bot, let's say discovery or market research, and at the same time be passionate. But you see, you say something that's great with this, like a bicycle or like a motorcycle person, because from with going with this analogy, it seems to me, um, how to say it. So let me maybe start by the question, and then I'll just give some additional, a few words. So I think that one trap of following the passion can be, and it happened to me before. So this is, I failed with one startup because I was so, crazy driven by passion that I simply avoided certain feedback from, from the market. I was the guy on the motorcycle. I didn't want to listen, right? I was actually convinced, and I'm right, So you say the question to me is actually how to avoid this trap, of being right, and actually how not to get also, because what I'm hearing from you is that you have to be passionate, so have the feeling, gut feeling. You have to have data and enough, some kind of, I'm not sure what this process is, but not to become doubtful, right? Because when you're not confident, then you can fall from the line. So how can you make this balancing act, and how to avoid this trap?
Oh, it's really hard.
How do you do that?
I fail with it all the time. Like I fall, and I think like actually right now, um, I'm at a point where I feel like I kind of lost balance, and listened to to a lot of feedback, because you, you know, the new line of plugins and products, I wanted to make it better, and I wanted to take a lot of feedback from people, and it kind of changed my way of looking at things. And I think that like it's okay to fall. I think I think a big part of doing this is just being consistent and being like, okay, um, this it like I'm at a point where it doesn't work, or I'm at a stage where I'm doubting myself and it's not great. Just you need to jump on the bike again and
It's
keep
hard, but
doing it.
what if you fall from from the bike that's actually riding on the? No, I'm just like kidding, but I mean,
No, no, I agree. Like that's a question I ask every day because like the bigger the business becomes, the higher the building is, and you die if you fall. So it's like I feel like it gets trickier and trickier as time goes by if you want to build an actual, like a company and a business.
Mhm.
Um, and the risk is, for me now, is much greater than when I released the first product, because when you release something on your own, you're just like, okay, this is in the world. Let's see what happens. You try and work with it. Maybe it fails, maybe it succeeds, but it's not like this feeling of like this has to like we're now we're at a point where like I feel a lot of times that there's so much on the line that sometimes you make mistakes just because you think about that, of like, okay, this product it has to succeed, so let's think about something that will work the best, da 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 da, and then you get into this mindset that's not, again, with it's not like, it's not passion driven. It's driven by fear, or driven by ambition, or driven by um, other people's opinions, or anything else other than passion, and then
I
you're
hear.
at the wrong side of building stuff, I think.
Thank you, thank you. You know, that's a great, good point. Listen, you actually, with what you said here, actually, I think I want to say that, and this is actually like a small mission of this entire series, is that you're just, and I don't want to make any self promotion. I'm just trying to say that
No, no, for sure.
there are certain good best practices of product management that that are actually kind of similar across all industries. I mean, generally in business. I mean, you mentioned in the Artlis was like a business school for you, and I mean, just that's exactly why I'm just trying, to organize this webinars, because I can see that a lot of people that work in the music industry are, former musicians or engineers who have never had any experience in building companies, or even uh, products within the company, right? So it can be hard, right? And now when you mentioned about this, with the growth of the company, you have way more to lose, right? So it can
Yeah.
get kind of tense, and ambition and fear can jump in. uh, so I want to say that there is actually, generally speaking, I don't want to go into details, but I mean, for the people who are listening, the concept of product portfolio management. So many larger organizations actually split their how to say, work or projects into, let's say, low risk project and high risk projects, right? So you still have this field for experimentation, but you make more conservative part of the business. You have certain plugins, for example, that are successful, right? And you keep sort of selling them. And I'm just saying this because what I'm hearing from you is that this constant experimentation and openness to failure. So you do one, two, three, okay, two failed, one have succeeded. It's just like investors who are just investing, right, in startups. They know that they just pour the money. Actually, 9 of them will fail, but the one that is actually successful will, only thing is actually also art of balancing, let's say, time and resources, actually, so you don't put too much into the basket, right? So you still have like this open mind for experimentation, but you have also this small conservative part, right, of business.
Yeah, I think that the difference here, and I don't see it this way, to be honest. I think
Yeah.
that the difference here is that, like, um, with a business like Safari, which is still, new and small, in many like regards. Um, there is no solid plan. Like
How many people are in Safari right now?
nine, nine
Okay,
people. Yeah.
so at least.
Uh,
Mhm.
and I think also like for me, what happens a lot of times is like the self image uh, is also something that might change my perception on things, and what I mean by it is like sometimes I think to myself like I can't believe that so many people uh, you know tried the plugins or used them, and it's just it's the more you grow, the more you self doubt yourself, I think,
Mm.
and you ask yourself like maybe I could do like other types of plugins and people will like them better because like you know what I mean. It's a journey and you kind of adapt and change as you go. But on the same note, like I try to remind myself that the stuff that are is already out there is pretty successful. So we should keep doing the same style. So it's like um, again, it's like I always go back to this like balancing act of improving but not changing it too much to not lose what you already had, that sort of thing.
Gotcha,
Um,
gotcha. Well, listen, I really had in mind larger organizations, right? So I understand that Safari is a relatively, I mean, still very small.
yeah,
I mean, that there are organizations who have 30, 50, and actually there are some products, who are in this sort of business terminology, cash cows, right? So they already have constant sales and they're just some big hit everybody loves. So they actually give you a certain, I would say, safety, right? So
yeah,
you can actually, there is, even if we fail miserably with three, upcoming products, we still have, something that will pay salaries, right, for the people, for the
yeah,
team,
for
right? I
sure.
mean, and I also was part of the teams in the past that actually what has kind of they this balancing act just coming from the one extreme to another, right? So either we go all the way and we just create such a innovations that can completely bankrupt the company, and then actually being so afraid that we are just not doing it, that's like a traumatic disorder, and you start simply let's not innovate at all, right? So that's what I mean. It's actually that in the large organizations this balancing act forms, it's actually become more complicated, right? Because you have bigger portfolios, etc., etc., so hmm?
Yeah, definitely. I think what helps is also like having really talented people around you that you um, feel like you can trust their opinion and way of thinking, and have it more as a group decision rather than just yourself. And I think that's a big kind of thing that I'm trying to adapt and work on, which is like building it even from the thought process with everyone involved, and not like uh, building something that I think is really great and
Hmm.
just ask people to like execute my concept,
Yep.
which is like also I think a big mistake is like just focusing on yourself and not like you want to hire people that are really talented in their own place of expertise, and then try and let them lead that area of the company. And so yeah, I mean it's again balancing act.
Listen,
uh,
one last, I mean, last question and one remark. So actually, when I think of creating products, so I also think about, let's say this, I don't want to make it some kind of artificial, let's say scientific, sort of like a methodological, like a, how to say, analysis, but I can see this area when you actually come up with ideas what to build, and then there is a, let's say some kind of phase or some kind of, yeah, I mean phase when you already like sort of starting, to build some, first idea, prototype, whatever. I mean, some kind of maybe, out outline, maybe some, mock-ups, things like this. So do you have like a bit different approach at those in two stages, so, or, you apply the same thing we talk here, at both sort of,
I try and experiment with it a little bit, but I think I'm very visual, so like I try and build these like boards of references for a new product, and it's usually something that I kind of have in my head before I go to the drawing board. Which, what I mean by it is like, let's say I want to build. I mean, let's say I want to build a bass compressor. So I kind of have a vision in my head of like what the features I want, etc. But I go to Figma and I literally try and like design the
visualize, right?
layout and visualize it and put like references and stuff. And then the first person that I usually share this with is Deckel, which is an internal like in-house designer, and he's also part of the R&D team. So he can see both sides really well, design and development. And usually we have a conversation about it, and then that's like the beginning is like usually the visual, and after the visual
But,
comes to a point where
listen,
sorry.
but sorry to interrupt, but you already mentioned when I want to build a bus compressor. But how do you, when the idea that actually this is gonna be, for the conversation's sake, a bus
Yeah.
compressor, not, I don't know, any other tape emulation, whatever. So how do you take these ideas from, and so like a even earlier stage?
I think that stage is like not even like conscious in my world. I mean, some of the ideas are conscious. Some of the ideas are like, we should like, um, I mean, okay. The first one I think is the easiest one for me to explain. The Gorilla Drive was an idea that I had because I use saturation very heavily when I'm mixing, and I love using some of the stuff like that everybody uses. Like Decapitator is an amazing tool, RC20 is an amazing tool, a few others, Saturn, but all of them I felt had this one thing that I had an issue with, which is like the low end, and every single one of them I always kind of avoided using them on super low end material like bass drums and 808s and subs, because I always felt like it was doing something to the bass that I didn't like. So the first concept of the Gorilla Drive was, let's make a very simple saturator that can have extreme low end. That was it. Like in my head, I was like, this is what I want. As a mixing engineer, I know I want it. And that one also started, when you think about it, with the design, because I was just spending time at like, even before I knew what Figma is and before I had any conversations with developers or anything, the first thing that I thought was the right move to start this project is like, let me find someone that can sketch the concept of the design into a place where I can show it to like a developer.
Yeah.
Um,
Gotcha.
and yeah, that's how it started, and till this day, it's kind of how I like to work.
Gotcha.
Should we leave some time for questions?
Exactly. That's what I wanted to say. But I just want to make one small remark. Maybe we,
Yeah.
without going deeper into this, but I have to do that because you mentioned that there is no shortcut. And I mean, I asked this question deliberately, hoping that you're going to say that, is with the like a rising trend of AI. And generally, I think, big tech trying to convince people that you can actually access everything quickly without effort. Even yesterday, there was some kind of shitstorm on LinkedIn about, like a founder of Suno saying, who likes actually, I mean, I don't like doing music or something like that, like it's actually, let's cut it because it's actually not pleasant. And everybody's like, what? It's like
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, I mean, of course it was actually taken maybe out of the context. I don't know, maybe he actually meant something else. I think he meant something else. But I mean, you know what I'm trying to say. I think and I'm actually asking these questions, or I can make every single guest I have here is that I think the technology is like a double sword edge, so obviously it gives us, a lot of great things, right? I mean, a lot of musicians, even the most famous, like, guitar players, etc., say, like the, invention of Pro Tools or, generally DAW was such a, like amazing improvement to the work. So I'm not actually anti-innovation, but I'm just saying that, obviously, the technology has this kind of, and I mean, a lot of, I would say, unfortunately, like I can clearly say that, like a lot of like a big tech who actually make a lot of money out of it, sort of trying to convince people that, you don't have to make an effort, right? It's everything can be just like this, so I'm not sure if, I mean, okay, I mean, probably, but I mean, I like it that you mentioned this, right? That there is no shortcut, or it's actually the best way is actually to do it like a proper way. I understand
Yeah,
that,
no, I think I'll just like clarify that I think AI is really cool for some things, and I think what people miss with it a lot of times with like the point is it's like I see it very differently than like, oh, we shouldn't make music anymore. I think the opposite is true. I think that there's like,
new ways of making music and actually being creative.
yeah, new ways of making music, new ways of making everything, and also like new people that maybe couldn't in the past. Because I can tell you from my experience, if we go back to me being a kid, um I wanted to play. I didn't have the skill set, and I didn't get it as quick as other people did. And
Right.
maybe if I had a computer and some AI tools, maybe I would be an artist. I don't know for a fact, but I think that like this is the way I think about AI is like, oh, this is exciting. Like my kid can maybe create something and express himself in a new way, and that's cool.
I completely 100% agreed. I'm just trying to say, again, balancing act, right? Not to
Yeah.
say, not to, buy to the idea that, there is no effort there, right? I mean, that actually the process itself is actually, let's say, pleasant, right? On, that should be like, how to say, it's not the goal, but the way it's the goal. Oh, no, the way is the
Yeah,
goal.
that's a really good point.
Yeah. All right. So let's maybe, take some questions. Okay. So let me just, yes, if there are any questions, uh,
Time for Q&A.
yeah.
Anyone?
There is small delay, so yeah. Let's give. By the way, I mean, if I can say, just you may have seen in the comments, there is a link to the Facebook group, which is actually audio and music tech product management. Noam is there, so if you don't want to like share questions or anything comes to your mind right now, you can join the group. It's, like a and actually there is actually a lot of people, all the previous guests from the previous webinars are there too. Yeah,
Yeah,
so if you,
absolutely.
Mhm.
It's great. It's a great. I think it's a great thing that you're doing, and like this idea of building this community is amazing.
Listen, there was actually the idea behind was simple. Actually, this is something I would I mean, you mentioned, right, what kind of drive, what kind of saturation I would like to have. So when I was trying to become a product manager in the audio industry, say what kind of courses I would like to, or some kind of like a knowledge I would like to have, so it could be smoother, or what kind of knowledge I could get in order to sort of grow as a I don't know, like a business person in the music industry, right? So that's exactly from the same sort of like a like a need what I would like to have, or like I mean, kind earlier, right? But
Yeah, no, I get it. It's really cool. I think that's why it's really cool because it comes from what you felt was needed, you know. Um, okay, George is asking, how do you make objective evaluations of an idea or a prototype? How do you evaluate the right form factor? Which features are described by the customers? Again, I think it's like it's very much a balancing act of like on one hand, I want to hear what people think, but on the other hand, um, I want to go with what I feel is right as a product manager, and I think um, the two tools that we use that are extremely helpful and powerful. One is again, like I said in the beginning of the conversation, is like I'll just bounce the idea way before it's even close to getting ready, when it's just a very early idea, to friends and colleagues and ask them like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And the reason I think it's really important to do it really early is because then your mind is more flexible to changes. A lot of times, if you're like already through some of the process, and then you ask somebody like, "Hey, this plugin is ready. What do you think?" And then he has comments. You're like, "Yeah, I'm never going to change that because I've spent so much time on it." But like, if it's a really new idea, if you spent on it like 3 hours and it's like, oh, this is exciting, and I wonder what other people think, it's really fresh in your brain still. And then when somebody says like, oh, this should be here, and it could be cool if there would be this knob, then it's still like totally doable, but also like your brain is open to like changing the initial idea. I think that's one thing. And the second thing is we send each product to beta testers. We have about 20 of them now, and we try and send it relatively early so we could get feedback. And a lot of times we'll change some stuff after we get the feedback from actual users. So yeah,
so it's very qualitative, right? Qualitative analysis.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, definitely.
mhm.
Um,
And I mean, okay, it's actually a very interesting point you're making about this. Let's say you have it fresh in your mind. It's like a further going down, you go down the road, it's harder, and people are actually try to be. I know how to. I don't know what is the name of this psychological law, but it's heard or read somewhere that people want to. They don't want to feel that they were wrong.
yeah.
So the further they go, they just more sort of.
It's
mm,
true. It's true. It's true
more,
with songs too. Like I remember, when I was mixing, a lot of times, um, like you you give the opinion. Like you sometimes you have this idea of like, what if we change the guitar part here, or like, what if we change the drum part here? But it's already in the mixing stage. I like I was experiencing it from a mixing stage, and then it's too late. And even if it's a good idea and everybody likes it, it's like, yeah, but we're not gonna redo it now. It's already pretty much done. Um,
but there is on the other side, this is I know this from this the other side, right? That I know that when I'm just creating song, very often I already have like a very clear idea what I want to achieve. And sometimes when I'm super open and I work with people who are, super, we're just not only collaborating, but we're friends. And sometimes these discussions are super heated. Yeah, but I mean, I
yeah,
know that if something actually changes my original vision, or it's just some contributing, making some, like a how to say interesting sort of contribution that I didn't think about it, right? Oh
yeah.
yeah,
I think this is a really good point. But I think this is like the difference between, like in my mind, like internal and external input. Like my team have usually different inputs, and that's kind of like more band members than people that are really not involved in any part of the process, like uh, and I think when you hear feedback or criticism from somebody that you work with on a daily basis, then you sometimes dismiss it because like, oh yeah, that's always his opinion.
Yes, yes, I get
Uh,
it. Yeah.
and it's similar with like music creation. You're like, ah, yeah, that's what you think.
No, no, I'm specifically the vision. I know. I mean, very often I get to the point. Actually, but again, it's just probably like again the balancing act. Yeah, no, yeah,
Yeah,
close. The farther you go, your vision actually somehow hardens, right? And you already it's actually very how to say complete. And somebody try to change this and just no, that's not exactly how it meant to be. But true is that actually it was never. If I think about some kind of how it's comparing music and products, at early stage there is no vision. It's actually I'm just fooling around and actually get some crazy melodies that I find interesting, and I just work on them in a let's say iterations. So saying it was not my vision, it's not necessarily true because there was no vision. This vision actually come down when you progress. So it's very much
yeah,
what you're saying. Yes, yes, very
yeah,
very
yeah, yeah.
interesting point. Very good point. Okay, let's take the question.
Yeah, I have to go, but I'm gonna answer Neil's question. Neil asks, "What's a consistent issue you run into with every product you work on?" Hmm. I think one issue that's always kind of um, something that we think about is like um, again, and this is like I don't want to sound like I'm saying it the same thing over and over again, but like it is what I'm focused on and thinking about is like a lot of times talking about feedback, we get this feedback from users, and we have an internal conversation with the team of like, okay, are we going to change it or we're not going to change it? Is it going to be something that many people are going to have an issue with? And I can give you an actual example. We released this plugin called the Zebra Clipper recently, and in the beta team, some people said that they missed having a more kind of detailed meter in terms of the amount of dB that's been clipped. And I'm not a person that looks at meters ever, so I kind of disregarded it. Uh, and then we released the product, and it was like if you go to the videos of that product and the like all the comments and stuff, there's like so many people that commented the same thing. It's like, oh, I wish this is cool. I wish there was like a visual representation of the amount of clipping. And for me, it's not like it doesn't compromise the vision at all. I don't really care. Like as a user, I would just not use the visualizer. But I think I made a mistake by like disregarding that comment and not like paying more attention to what users said. But on the contrary, sometimes you do go through that rabbit hole and you try and change, the product based on people's input, and you make a sacrifice that you kind of sometimes regret. So I
Hmm.
don't have the formula yet to when is listening to like external inputs, not from the team, but like from like beta testers and random people. When is
Mhm.
it a good idea and when is it a bad one? And I think that it's like a constant struggle. Um,
Hmm. That's an
yeah.
interesting, super interesting point. All right, I understand that you have to run. It's kind of
Yeah.
late. No, once again, thank you so much. I hope that we are going to, able to make some more conversations once, everything, you know, you have more products and more sort of like a reflection and some kind of maybe we can be able to like reiterate and sort of come back to the same topics.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
but of course we are in touch. So I really appreciate. Um, Guys, just to everyone, remember you can join the group. Noam is there, so we can chat over there. I also like I posted small, actually not me, but a colleague from marketing team posted the um, uh, the link to the newsletter. So if you'd like to join audio product management newsletter and talk, there are just articles and webinars and workshops related, to how to build and manage actually and maintain audio products. There is also a link in the comments. And with this said, I would like to thank you so much and wish you, great balancing act decisions, right?
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, this was great. I really appreciate it, and thank you. And I'm going to sleep.
Good night.
All right. Bye, guys.